it's not about the tools, it's about the practice. Once you gain the skills, you can use any pen to achieve any style you want, really.
What's going on? You're listening to episode 67 of the Perspective Podcast, and I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. This show is about carving out time to build something for yourself and about being open to seeing things from a different perspective. I want to share what is and isn't working for me, along with sharing my guest point of view. And let's start this off with 3 quick reminders. The Perspective-Collective Facebook group is slowly catching steam, and we have a solid community growing where people like you are sharing their work and getting awesome feedback. I also plan on hiring from this pool of people when certain projects arise or when I need more help with certain things with the podcast or show notes or newsletter or whatever it is, even website or SEO. These are the people that I'm going to be looking for extra help. Next, tickets for my pop-up workshop are now available for Crop Conference, and you can purchase your conference ticket and this workshop ticket at cropbr.com. Don't sleep on this, as this conference will sell out. I promise you that. It's limited to like 300 people, and with the lineup that Matt Dawson pulls in, it's going to sell out. Also, there are limited spots left in my Creative South 2-part workshop. You can register for that at creativesouth.com. And generally, Creative South sells out every year too. At least the last 3 years I've been there, it sells out around 800 people. And both workshops, I'll be teaming up with my homeboy, Brian Manley, to help you craft and deliver a killer talk. So if you struggle with sharing your ideas publicly, then you do not want to miss this. We're going to help you in both workshops hash out your ideas into an outline, and we're going to give you so many tips on how to practice, because practicing is huge, as well as how to deliver with confidence and just rip up the stage and, impress everyone who's there. Make an impact on people too. That's what's most important. And this workshop's not only going to help you with public speaking, but it's going to help you with the whole writing process. If you're into blogging or in vlogging, podcasting, or any type of presenting, this is going to help you gain the confidence and clearly speak your ideas out publicly. Moving on, today's guest is none other than Ian Barnard, who is a letterer, calligrapher, workshop leader, and content creator all the way out of the UK. Not to mention, he's an amazing human being who literally pours himself into our creative community, and I know this dude would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. I've watched Ian grow his audience from a few thousand back in 2013, 2014 to well over 200,000 right now on Instagram. And I think combined, he probably has like 300,000 people total in his influence circle. He's an absolute wizard at audience building and creating viral videos. He's also 100% open about his process, and he's not afraid to share his tips and tricks through his YouTube and Instagram tutorials, as well as his Honest Designers podcast, which he co-hosts with a gentleman from Design Cuts, another lady, as well as Dustin Lee, who was on a couple episodes ago. Ian has an incredible story of how he went from getting by in freelance to creating a self-sustaining passive income off creating products that help people like you and me elevate their design work. In this episode, we discuss tips for building an audience, practice, patience, and overcoming comparison, how to create that shock factor that makes people want to share your work, steps for creating your first product, and so much more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. If you're looking to grow your audience and make your work stand out, then this episode is for you. And I know you're going to find value in it. So if you could do me a favor and share this with someone via social media, Twitter, Instagram, or, just copy the link and send it to someone who you think can find value in it. You can find the show notes of this episode filled with a ton of his work and, links to his products and so at perspective-collective.com/67. And if you catch some inspiration from the show, please create some work and tag me on Instagram. I'll give it a share there where I post each week's episode artwork, and, tag me at Perspective Podcast. I'll be sure to share it and give you some credit. Oh yeah, I have to come back and add this. I almost forgot, silly me, but stick to the end of the show, as Ian has a crazy awesome giveaway for one lucky listener. And then he also has a pretty hefty discount that he's going to provide every one of my listeners for the first time purchase in his web store. And that gives you access to all of his products. It's an insanely awesome deal. So stick to the end to find out how you can win, and as well as how you can get the coupon code to access his shop. Let's get into the show. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am joined this evening by my good friend Ian Barnard, all the way in the UK. It is midnight my time in Iowa, and it is, what is it, 6:08?
6 o'clock, yeah.
It's 6 o'clock UK time, man. So thanks for making this work for me. How are you doing, my longtime friend?
I'm very well. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Scotty. I can't believe how many years it's been so far since I first spoke to you on that bridge in Columbus, Georgia.
Well, and before that, it would have been Instagram, like 2013, 2014. I was one of your early beta testers, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I reached out to you, just and you've been a faithful tester for so many years. Not many people gave me feedback, so I was very handy.
It's so long ago. I knew you back when you had like less than 3,000 followers, and now you're over 200,000. So it's been a trip to watch you grow,
and you as well. It's it's been long, and I think we've both put in a lot of hard work, and it's definitely sort of paying off for both of us.
Yeah, feeling like I'm following in your footsteps. But for those who are crazy enough in my audience that don't know who you are, can you please give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself?
Okay, so personally, my name's Ian. I've just turned 39 a few days ago, which sounds really old. I'm married to Lindsay, and we have 2 little kids, Evie and Zach. I live in the UK. I'm a Christian. I'm doing hand lettering as a profession now after many years of practice.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I do quite a few things to bring in the sort of income that I do have, but my main thing I'm known for is hand lettering and calligraphy. And calligraphy, for those who don't know, is the art of beautiful writing. So I just do fancy writing all day.
Yep, and lettering is the art of drawing the letters, so a lot of people still don't understand it. Man, your career is literally blown up. How did it all start? How did you get into lettering? What were you doing before, the Instagram early days? What did you do for a day job? How did it all happen? How did it, explode from there?
I'm sort of trained as a graphic designer. I went off to college to do that and got my first job back in the end part of 1999. Wow, this makes me feel old. I have to remember this. So around 2000, I was I worked for like 7 years doing as an agency. Then I went off and did 7 years working for a magazine, but I was only part time, so I spent 2 days a week building up my freelance career. Then I jumped straight into doing full-time freelance, taking on websites, taking on logos design, whatever I could get really, just to bring in the money. Actually, when my son was born, which was my second child, my wife was watching, she had a program she likes watching when she was feeding my son for like half an hour, 45 minutes. So she chose Downton Abbey. I don't know if you get it over there, that sort of period drama. I wasn't interested, so I decided to learn calligraphy for some reason. I just picked that out of the blue. And got a dummy's guide and sort of went from there. I started to do it, and because you need to see how good you're getting, as in you have to look back to see that actually I am getting better, and it's not just looking rubbish all the time. I used Instagram to catalogue my progress, like people did with food back in the day. For some reason, people enjoyed seeing the images I was posting, and I started doing some video as well, which was really popular. And it is quite satisfying to see someone do a craft that they've like taught themselves, or they've been trained up in. And so I went from there. Every time I'd start doing more and more new stuff, and I really loved it. And after about sort of a year, I started to get work from it, especially the hand lettering. And yeah, that's when I first picked up my sort of like major client. I got Speedo, the swimwear brand. I did some work for them, doing some hand lettering on a poster, and yeah, I was able to sort of start bringing in some income from that. It was like, it started off as a side hustle, but they brought it on as part of what I did as a graphic designer, and was able to do that as a part of what I mainly did as my design services.
And then you also brought in products. Like back in the day, you were doing Photoshop presets and Illustrator stuff. Like I still have all your original products that you gave me to test. Like I still have them today. Like creative market was big for you.
Yeah, so there was a few strands that ran along. I was getting when I get very bored with my day-to-day stuff, I start doing a side project just to combat the boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't really interested in working on web design stuff, and I didn't realize that until I started hand lettering, and I was like, oh, I want to get rid of this. And so I was like trying to bring up some passive income. So I Creative Market which was an online marketplace for digital sellers. It just popped up. It was really in its infancy, and I got a shop. What was handy was you didn't have to go through a system of people checking your work before it got sold. You could just set up a shop and put products up, which was great because all the others were quite hard to get onto, like Shutterstock and iStock and all those ones. And so I set up a shop, and I started selling like logo templates when they were a thing, of like vintage logo templates, which did all right. I brought in like a couple of $100 per month. It was just, meant I could get a few coffees and stuff.
Yo.
But I started to, there was one thing I started to do when I was doing my lettering on Instagram, which was adding texture to my lettering, which was a thing, it was a real big thing back then. And I sort of worked out how the sort of pros had been doing it. I looked into Photoshop and I was just like playing around with it because I needed to be able to do this lettering and post it while doing my main job. So I had to make it quicker for myself. So I made this Photoshop document using a thing called Smart Objects and stuff, so you could just chuck your work.
Smart filters.
Yeah, so you could just chuck your work in it. It would automatically apply all these filters I'd built up in it. And I started using that, and I was like, oh, this is really handy for me. And I thought, hang on a minute, people keep asking me how I do what I do with the textures. Why don't I try and package this into a product? So I spent 2 weeks like flat out trying to put it together, not knowing that anyone would buy it at the end. I was really behind in all my work, and I was just like, this is like a bit of a gamble. Not like, I suppose a little bit financially, but I was just, I was so behind on everything I was doing. But I put it out there, and it went to number one on the whole store of Creative Market. And
which one was this, the first one?
This was called Texture Press. And so literally overnight, it brought in more money than my web design, logo design, all my freelance business together. And so I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I was like really taken back, and I was like, this is, I could maybe put my resources into, my time into. So over the next, I suppose, 6 months, I started releasing products every 2 to 3 weeks, and some of them did really well, some of them hardly anyone bought. But the money was coming in enough to mean that I could let go of all the bits I was really not enjoying, which was a lot.
When you created these products, did you see there was a need for them? Because it's kind of similar to like when I had Dustin Lee on the episode. Like, you two were some of the bigger names that were coming up at the same time of Creative Market. Like, where would you go find and get the inspiration for these products? Was it just things like, man, how could I recreate something quicker for myself and then package up and maybe other people would need it? Or did you see that there were, needs out there in the Instagram community, and then you thought you'd build a product like chalk or gold foil? I remember vector press. I remember all those things.
So actually, me and Dustin were like slightly we're really good friends now, but we were slightly in competition back then because we both started doing those vintage logo templates, but then we both started doing these sort of, we called smart PSDs. because they both functioned in a similar way. Mine were very much focused on lettering and adding different effects to lettering. The way I do it would go on Pinterest, and this is a good tip for anything really. You know, if you want to get started in it, is go on Pinterest, because Pinterest has all the good stuff go to the top. And so I would look at the current trends, and I'd work out I'd sort of reverse engineer. I'd see something like someone had done some type using watercolor, and I think, well, how can I reverse engineer that? So I just thought about people who don't have the skill set of some of these people who can do some amazing work. Mm-hmm. That they're really good at what they do, but they just can't get to this level where it's, you know, you see it and you just think, oh, that's way above me. And I thought, well, how can I make something that can get them from where they want to be to where this, you know, art that they're looking at? And so I get it, and I just reverse engineer it until it was right. Sometimes I just couldn't get it. The effects were just not good enough. But a lot of the times I was able to, with a lot of playing, and a lot of it was actually like analog textures. So I got a friend who is a painter to do like a ton of watercolor textures for me, because I wanted to make sure it was high quality. And then I would take them onto the computer, and I'd fiddle around for sometimes I'd fiddle around for months and months trying to do it and get it, perfect it. But once I knew that it would sell pretty well, because people were after that thing because of seeing the trends appear on Pinterest. So that was my process, constantly on Pinterest, you know, sometimes on Instagram, but it was mainly Pinterest.
Interesting.
You know, because Instagram was just seeing what was most recent, mm-hmm. whereas Pinterest was always showing what was most pinned. So you just look at that and you just see what was going on there.
So you found a trend, and then within the community, you found something that was a convenience that solved the problem. Like, I have no idea how to do watercolor, but I remember using your watercolor kit to actually turn some of my lettering at the time into it. So that's the whole thing is just about solving problems and providing convenience and saving time for people.
Yeah, and I was just making it up as I was going. There was no master plan. It was just I was enjoying this, and I was just let's just try and just keep going. And I still can't believe that at some point I was releasing products every 2 weeks. Now I'm releasing something a month and a half, and I was sort of in some creative zone for about a year of just constantly doing it, because you get to a point where you've made so many things that there's just not as much left to make.
You've elevated your product game now. So now you do Procreate brushes and stuff. How did you see the market for that? Were you just making things on your own and then saw the next opportunity and saw the wave of trends for Procreate brushes?
Everything comes about for a different reason than just to sort of there's a gap in the market, which is, I suppose, what you would call an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I really wanted because I saw the iPad Pro come out, and I didn't get it straight away, because I was like, is this something that would benefit my business? Only a handful of people you could see using it, and so you just didn't know. And it was I've got a friend who works for Apple, and so I get a bit of percentage off, but not a great deal. And it still cost me £880, which is over $1,000. And I was I just didn't have the money to just sort of willy-nilly just buy it as a toy, because I couldn't see, at the point I couldn't see. I tried it out, but I'd only tried it out in one of the apps called Paper Paper 53, and it wasn't. I was like, this is not like Paper. This is, it's not authentic. And but I wanted to. I'd got myself quite established in the community, and I wanted to try and be at the forefront of the sort of technical stuff as well as the, pushing myself out there. So I thought, I bit the bullet. I thought, okay, I'm going to have to find a way of making some money from it. So I got it and, played around for ages. And then I thought, well, actually, you can make your own brushes in Procreate. Maybe I could sell them. And so I ended up making a couple of kits, one of which I gave away for free. which was like black letter Gothic style with some worksheets to show people how to do it. And then I released one which was like a brush kit, like with how to learn brush script, and came with some other brushes, and that was the sort of one that was for sale. And over time, took quite a few months, I managed to make some of the money back from it, so it wasn't such a scary investment. I actually could justify spending that much money on, especially on the Apple Pencil, which is like over $100.
It's $100, yeah. It's worth it though, man. Wow, that thing is amazing.
It is worth it. The only thing I haven't used is the Wacom Cintiq, which people keep asking me about. I need to. I don't have any friends who've got one, so I haven't been able to try and properly use it. But I've used similar products like the Surface Pro, which is really good. But Apple do this thing where they really, really nail something.
In the Surface Pro, man, it's hard to get down with the lettering in it. It's just not as intuitive as the Apple or the iPad Pro, because I had the Surface Pro for almost a year, and it was hard to work with.
I really enjoyed the pen. I thought the pen was actually better because it had a textured nib on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a eraser on the end, which was really handy. And you could work directly in Illustrator and Photoshop, which you can do on the iPad, so it's more of a workaround through an app. And especially for those who are on a budget, you get, for the same price, you get a laptop as well as a tablet you can write on. But Apple, annoyingly nailed it.
Yeah, dude, I'm right there with you, man. It took me forever to invest in it, but now you've really tailored to this lettering crowd again, and there's a huge gap on, I would say, products for letters, and now you just keep coming out with more and more brushes. And more recently, I think you had like some like splatter kind of glowy ones, and then you had the most recent one is the chalkboard ones. Like those are, I can't wait to test that one out for you. Like I said, I got a special project, and hopefully I can announce it by then with that. But I mean, I think you're finding these gaps, and I mean, I'm assuming you're probably doing pretty well with the audience size that you have, especially the lettering crowd and the people hungry to learn from you, because you're a big teacher too, which we'll get into in a little bit. But where are these ideas coming from for like the chalkboard one? Because I see that one being insanely popular.
I haven't done a great deal of chalkboard actually on a chalkboard. I've got one in my office. It's not that big, and it's quite unforgiving chalk in a way that you want a fine point, but it lasts for about a second before it breaks.
Yeah, and you have to sharpen them manually.
Yep. And so it's quite, and hats off to those who do it. But I was like, well, maybe I can try and recreate this in Procreate, because I was using, the reason why it came out is because I was using the default 6B pencil that's in it. But it was all right, but it just wasn't giving me the effect I was looking for, and it was the closest I was getting. And so I thought, well, maybe I just make my own. That's normally what comes out. Why don't I just try and make my own? So I got my Crayola chalks and just got to work. The thing is, I needed to scan them in, so the chalkboard was not a place to start because I couldn't scan it in. So I just got a black piece of paper, and then just kept doing loads of textures on it, scanning it in, refining it in Photoshop. It is quite a process. Making brush isn't complex in Procreate. The process to get to it is, for the textures, is making it, for me, scanning it in, making a repeatable pattern in Photoshop, and then you can save it onto your iPad and you can import it into there. And so it's just trial and error of going through that process over and over again until I sort of got as, I was happy with what the effect was looking. But rather than just give people a few brushes that just did some chalks, I gave them like a full kit where there was like, dots and lines and stuff for where you smudge it sometimes when you use your finger, and also like instructions on how to achieve certain effects, because people might like they might get it but they don't know what to do with it. So I tried to make it a rounded product. That really helped. And also my friend, my hand letter friend Stefan Kunz let me have one of his brushes to go in it, or two of his brushes to go in it, and he's an expert chalkboarder as well. So,
yeah, he is.
And he's got a massive audience. So that all those things combined, and it's definitely something that my audience is definitely people who either want to learn or just love watching. So for the ones who want to learn and have an iPad, that's, you know, that's something they want, they're interested in. Whereas like something we haven't touched on is that I also do a lot of type design work, but that's not really suited to. There are quite a few designers that follow me, but the Procreate stuff definitely does better than my type design via my Instagram. Yes, it's yeah. And the one thing that the ultimate thing my audience are looking for is like a course for me to teach them how to do what I do.
You're already like taking the words out of my mouth. When are you going to make a course?
Oh, it is in production. I went over to Canada. I've had to team up with someone because I'm just a good procrastinator on certain things, which is courses. But we did two while I was out in Canada. I was with another hand letterer called Amanda Áine, and she is like an expert at putting courses together. And I thought, well, why don't I find someone who's, you know, sometimes you get to the end of your abilities and you have to just ask someone else for help. So I hope, so that's a future project coming soon.
Well, when you have it ready, let me know and I'll give it a plug here for you.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind.
Before I talk about audience building, if someone wanted to get into making a product, if you were them, what would your first steps be?
I'd apply for a shop on Creative Market. I think you have to apply now rather than at first it was just you set up a shop and that was it. But because there's so many people selling at the moment, they need to make sure you're not just going to come along and just offer rubbish. So you have to apply now. So I'd go through that because I don't know how long the process is for that. But I would do your research is the main thing. Just looking at what people are using. You look around Instagram, look around Pinterest, see what people are using that is not being offered, which is a lot harder now than it was because obviously more and more stuff coming out all the time. So you do your research and see what you're good at as well, or see what another thing is see what where your frustrations lie with certain things. So the reason why I did some Illustrator products is because my frustration of adding texture to my lettering in Illustrator, because you get that spinning beach ball as you'd try and apply texture because there was so many paths going on, it would just slow it down to a snail's pace. And so I was like, it's that sort of thing, and there must be another way. And so I ended up with this product that has become my best-selling product by far, which was
Vector Press.
Yeah, so that was like that, and I did a similar one called Aquatype, which was watercolor in vector, which is not something easily done either.
You did a buckshot one too, I believe.
Yes, that was like a sort of vector press off the cuff, but it's best where you could have outside texture as well as inside texture. And the vector press did really well, and it's still my best-selling product by far. And it all came from just the frustrations I was having with how hard it was to work in Illustrator with textures. It's finding these things that frustrate you and there's no solution currently. See if you can provide that solution.
That's true entrepreneur mindset.
See, I don't call myself an entrepreneur because I don't feel like...
I have to respect you. I'm sorry for swearing, but that's complete and utter bullshit. I'm sorry, but like you are a total entrepreneur. Like you and Dustin Lee, I think, solve problems better than anybody in this creative field, and he really targets like the Illustrator crowd, and you pretty much are owning the lettering field right now, and I think you're both absolute pros on it. That's probably why, you know, you have such a successful Honest Designers podcast. Check out that segue right there. You know, other than someone looking to make a product, you know, find a weakness of yourself or something that frustrates you, something that's within your strength, a need out in the place. You know, I think those are great places to start. But speaking of the Honest Designers podcast, what's this podcast about and who's it for?
So this is another thing that started out something else.
It was a mastermind, right?
Yeah, so we had a group where we were just discussing stuff we were working on, just trying to encourage each other, because when you're working for yourself, it's quite a lonely experience in terms of you don't have, you know, I have my wife and my kids, you know, around me very regularly, and obviously my friends outside of work. But during work, it's quite a lonely thing because there's not. I live in a little town in the UK, and so there's only a handful of sort of designers around me, and so apart from trying to organise meetups, it's quite hard to get that actual personal interaction that you need, that you miss from. I interact with a lot of people via Instagram and through Facebook and email, but having that actually, one-on-one like we're having now is really important as for growth and for encouragement and for support. And so we set this up as just a regular meetup. I think we're doing like weekly or every couple of weeks. But after a while, we just thought, we've both been, a lot of us, 3 out of the 4 of us have been around quite a long time. Tom being actually the baby of the group. We thought, well, I've got 18 years of experience, similar to the other guys. And, maybe actually we can talk about stuff like, starting up as a freelancer, talk about the sort of highs and lows of actually being in this profession quite a long time, and what we would recommend for people starting out, for people who are struggling in certain areas, and just giving back to the community via our grand years of experience that we've had, trying not to follow in our mistakes. And so that's what we do is we talk and offer advice really about being a designer, I suppose, nowadays.
It's both creative and flipping the business switch on things as well, right?
Yeah.
How to not be a starving artist.
And just, because I suppose all of us make our income from products. And so that's another thing that we talk about quite a lot is being able to do stuff other than, I think you can make money other than client work these days. And I think, having multiple streams of income, especially for someone who's working on their own, is really important these days, because you just don't know when suddenly a client might pull the plug on, a project, or people are not hiring because of the economical climate. It's good to have all those different strands coming in, so if one goes, you can be supported still with the other ones. So that's the idea.
And is this weekly?
Yes, it is weekly. Yeah.
What day?
It comes out on a Thursday. We normally record it on a Wednesday. Not that we record a Wednesday and the person having to edit it has to do an all-nighter. We sometimes try and do a few together and
build a queue.
We build sometimes if we're organised. Sometimes we are.
This is the first time I've had a queue built. For the first time, I'm like 3 or 4 episodes ahead right now. It's crazy.
Wow, you must be celebrating.
Oh, I'm celebrating.
I wish I could do that with my social media, but it's literally 5 minutes before I think of something before I post it.
Man, I've always wondered how that works. Speaking of your social media, congrats on over 200,000 on Instagram. I can't wait to celebrate with you the day you hit 1 million. Like you figured it out. What's been the key to growing your audience? As you said earlier, you're in touch with your audience. You know pretty much what they want to see. People want to learn or they want to watch. But how have you learned to scale such an audience and are responsive? Do you try to answer everybody's question or reply to everyone as much as you can, or in the beginning, is that how it started?
I thought one of the key things, there's some like really top ones. One is consistency of posting, is just popping up regularly, so like with you with your podcast, people know you because you pop up regularly. And
you expect it from you expect the podcast every Wednesday. But like for you, was it daily? Like your output is way more than what I was ever able to kick out.
Yeah, I think one thing is that I prioritize, and this is where like some of my other bits suffered, because I was prioritizing social media over. I was like literally prioritizing posting to social media over everything.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, and so meant that my audience was growing, but sometimes my income wasn't.
It could affect the home life too if you're like me.
Yeah, luckily because I can do it during my working day. It's
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not many times because I do a lot of video stuff. It's hard to do it in the house because the lighting is terrible. And I had an accident with some ink in the lounge, and never to do it ever again.
It wasn't with your chili pepper video, was it?
No, unfortunately, no. Was half a jar of ink on the coffee table, which was not a good look.
No. Hopefully your vector press sales can take care of that one.
Yeah.
Other than consistency, what else has been key to you?
Adding value to your posts as well. So not all my posts are the same, but things that really stand out is teaching people via used to be 15 seconds video. I do have range. I don't have one style that's sort of like my style. My strength of my personality is that I very much flip from one thing to another.
And I love that about you, man. It makes me feel like it's okay for me not to have one set style. So like I look up to you for that.
Yeah, I'm envious of people who do have that one style. There's people who are doing some really cool stuff with that one style. But I struggle with just keeping interest in just one style. That's why I have multiple things, and it just keeps it fresh for me, and that works for me. And doing a different style sometimes is good for the audience thing. Sometimes it has its up and downs with doing different styles all the time, because people like that regular, this is the format, like you get people on YouTube who wear the same clothes, who do the same intro, do the same outro, all that thing, because it does help breed familiarity. But sometimes mixing up also just brings in a new dimension, because people can get bored, I suppose, of what you're pushing out there. Making it sometimes just going to the edge of what is like, because you do commercial stuff and you post about your work, you say, I've done this, but then sometimes just going left field and do something quite random. And that's where the sort of stuff is, like the vegetable calligraphy. That was just like...
You, to me, have cracked the viral code of how to create a video. Like what goes into it. Just thinking of something wild, like using parsnips, or I think you've used a cucumber. I know you've used a chili pepper for stuff. I've seen you write in snow. I've seen you do all kinds of crazy things. What's like a key for how some of your videos have gone viral? Because every time I go on my Instagram, there's a video from Ian on some random ass huge art sharing site like Arts Hub or Arts Help, or there you are on just like the good old Good Type or the Handmade Font or something like that. What's been that? Just find the wildest idea, keep it short and to the point, and have like one of the actual frame that's showing your hand doing something crazy with the object. Like,
I've done a lot of experimentation and things haven't worked and things have really failed. I would post me doing some traditional calligraphy and it will be all right. People like it. It's satisfying for them. But when you this is the formula, is taking one thing. So you've got calligraphy on one hand, really nice to look at. People like looking at it. Then you take something else that's not related to it, and you put those two together, that's when it sort of explodes. So taking calligraphy and taking a vegetable is not two things you normally see in the same sentence, but you put them together, and because I train myself in this craft, I could, it's not the best looking calligraphy you're ever going to see, but it stops people and they look at it and they view it. And it's that sort of short content that's like, oh, I've never seen anything like that before, or I would never have thought of using that. It's that sort of, people share stuff and people view stuff that's either awe-inspiring, and that can be classified as awe-inspiring because it's just like, I'd never thought of doing it like that, and he can still write nicely even using a chili pepper, or frustration and anger. But it's mainly the awe, and that's, if you see that a lot on Instagram, you see like someone doing a press up while holding 500 pounds on their back or whatever it is. It's the things where someone's doing a jump across a building where there's like a massive drop. It's that stuff where it's like something you probably wouldn't do and something that's really impressive. And those things sort of just seem to drive people's emotions to share it or to view it.
Something that just shocks people.
Yeah, I try not. I'm not a person who does the real shocks, content. It's more of a looking at something in a different way or showing. One of my things is it's not about the tools; it's about the practice. It's not about the pen; it's about the practice. Because once you gain the skills, you can use any pen to achieve any style you want, really.
Even like simple Crayola markers, Crayligraphy.
Yeah, and that does well because it's like, well, I've got one of those markers at home and it doesn't look like that when I draw it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I remember listening to someone speak. He's called Devon Graham, and does Devon Supertramp, and he does all these videos on YouTube where it's like the biggest water slide ever and really nicely filmed, but like massive, like the biggest swing ever and stuff like. But he was saying that he remembers getting more views when he used just a Canon, entry or middle of the road Canon camera than he did with the Red camera. But that's because people can relate to the tools that you use and engage more when you're using something that they can use as well. So people definitely engage more when they see the tool. Like a vegetable, they're going to have a vegetable at home. But with like maybe a dip pen, which is what I trained in, not many people have those at home just laying around. So I think it's the things that are common to people taken into a different context sometimes to like, whoa, make them step back and think, wow.
And showing, hey, like for me, I'm just using my regular iPhone as my primary camera with like a $20 Gorilla Pod I got on Amazon. It's like I don't have any fancy tools or anything like that either, besides the iPad, but showing that someone at home can actually accomplish the same thing too with lots of practice over time, and the tools don't really matter.
It's impressive when you're using an expensive piece of equipment, but it's not something that fills them with something that they hope that they can, one day achieve that what they got. And the question I get asked the most over everything is,
what pen is that?
Yeah, and it's the same, and it's the reason why people put equipment lists, in their posts, whether they're doing photography, whether they're doing video, whether they're doing calligraphy, whether they're doing, painting. People want to know what you're using because they, a lot of the time, feel that they can, if they get that brush, if they get that pen, they're going to achieve the same sort of thing. But unfortunately, it's not normally the case, because unless you trained in that style, in that field, is unless you put the practice in, it's not going to matter. Because you see there was a good series I remember watching where it was like on photographers, where they would have a challenge where they have pro photographer budget camera, and it would literally be like a fun kiddie camera, but they were attempting to take some sort of professional shots with it, and it was amazing what they could produce from such a rubbish camera. It's all about that eye, or it's all about the technique that the craft that you've been trained in. So it's definitely something that's now sort of I'm benefiting from putting in the sort of. I was spending like half an hour to an hour every day. I got quite obsessive with learning calligraphy, and I would get home after an evening out with my wife and just have to do that letter for the day that I was practicing. But I'm now benefiting from putting in that sort of hard work and keeping it up.
Well, it's one of those things. You do a great job of letting, the audience and the viewer see inside of the process, and they to them it's just like, holy crap, Ian can whip up this beautiful calligraphy name or something like that in just a couple seconds. But really, it's taken you 4 years in order to do this thing really well in a couple seconds. But I think that's why an audience is so engaged with you, and you continue to keep attracting new people, as you let them in on the process, and you kind of share the behind the scenes, and you even share the blooper reels sometimes too. That's huge in this scene, to let people know you're not perfect.
It's hard to see. You see some of these feeds, and it's just perfect work after perfect work.
It's paralyzing.
It is, and you just get that sort of comparison. Like it feels like they just woke up one day and they're just amazing, and it doesn't work like that. 99% of the time, they put in the work. The process is lengthy, and just seeing the end work is not sometimes always that helpful for people. And I like to give people hope that they can achieve what I can achieve. And I'm hoping they achieve more than what I achieve.
You have tons of YouTube tutorials and stuff for people, which I'll link up in the show notes too. But like you definitely are one of the best teachers out in the game.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm actually an introvert as well, which is it's like weird that I put myself out of video.
Yeah.
I used to be a really shy kid, and so it has been a lot of work to put myself out there. And the thing is, it is hard to sometimes put stuff that is not perfect because you want to try and do your best. But I definitely get it's the comments. Because you can get wrapped up in the likes, you can get wrapped up in the comments and stuff like that. But I do enjoy posting something and it really resonating with someone. Especially my sort of worst one, as in terms of it didn't go to plan, was trying to write on a baseball cap, and it just came out and it was a word. I thought it was like flow, and it just merged into one big blob, and it was a video. And I only had one shot. And so I just put going, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And, people loved it because it was just the
human side of you.
The human side. And especially for those who have gained a following, that they need to show that, they're still the same person just because numbers are involved. You're still the same person, and you're still... you still make mistakes, and you still have rubbish work. A lot of my work is rubbish.
Mine too, man.
You just sometimes I look there and I'm like, why are people even following me? Why? It all starts out. Sometimes it all starts out like that, and you have to go through that stage every day to, refine it and stuff like that. So
it takes a lot of rubbish work to get to your best work.
Yeah. Every day. I wake up. It takes a while to just get into the flow as well. And sometimes I abandon work because I just it looks nothing. I looks nothing. This is rubbish. It's just no one's going to even bother.
I think this flows nicely into it. Before we go into rapid fire question and wrap this up, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a creative who struggles starting or sticking with it? Especially ones that deal with comparison or see people who just put out amazing work with no sharing behind the scenes.
The thing is, every day that you put in the work is a day that you're ahead of the competition, because especially in this time, people really don't. There's two things. I wrote about it the other day, which was practice and patience. Every day that you can do the work and you can put it out there is a means that you're a day, one, closer to your goals, and two, you're ahead of the competition. I found that I've got more work niching into a specific area, and I think, especially if you can learn a craft, if there's something you're interested in, you learn. If you can get into that, you're going to be ahead of a lot more people. It's the whole done is better than perfect is resonates so much better, because I still worry. I've released 90 odd videos on YouTube, and I still every time think no one's going to watch this. This is rubbish. The quality is off. I'm still using an entry-level camera to do my videos, but I've seen that it's grown my audience if I just do. I just make and I share and I do and I don't. The thing is, what a good tip is just to do your the work you want to post first thing in the morning, because then before your brain wakes up. Because as soon as your brain wakes up, it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, Scotty, that's the worst bit of work I think you've ever seen. Your brain just...
Wow, you sound exactly like the inner critic, just with a British accent right now.
Yeah. And it's just, and it's like, as soon as that starts happening, it's like, it's endless spiral. Like, people are going to hate it. No one's going to like it. It's not even, people are going to unfollow you because of this bad work. That's the things that go in your heads. It's like trying to turn them off, or just set yourself a goal just to get it out there by the end of get it out there by a certain time, whatever it looks like. I know that recently both Dustin and Lisa, who were on the podcast, have been doing like a daily drawing thing to try and get better. Lisa has limited herself to 5 minutes to do a quick Procreate sketch every day, and she's amazing illustrator anyway. But and Dustin has done that as well, and you definitely see the improvements, straight away. And I've seen a lot of people do the sort of daily challenges where they just chuck something out there every day without fail, and it even within a month you can see amazing progress on their skills. But it's just getting out of your head. Your head can just really, really stop you from doing it. It's not, you worry about what other people think, but it's just, people are not worried. They want to see you achieve well. People are not sitting there going, "Oh, I'm gonna," with their finger ready just to unfollow, or
right.
If there was a dislike button, click dislike, or comment that you're rubbish. People like seeing people who are trying to achieve good things, and so just know that you've got to get it out there. Don't think too much.
Your biggest enemy is yourself.
It is. Unfortunately, we all have insecurities to a certain level. Some worse than others, but I think if you can just get it out there before they start seeping in, because by the end of the day, and it might be the case that you only have the time at the end of the day, but make sure you do it like as soon as you can. Give yourself a time limit so you don't, procrastinate about it and worry about posting it. I know people got tons of work that they've never posted, and it's just their head has just got in the way of them posting it. So just the more you can put out there, the more likely that you're going to start. You'll get better. You'll get more interest in your work, and you will build an audience because people will see this regularity. And doing this, and it takes a lot. You have to give yourself, like, if you're trying to grow an audience, and make this something of an income, you have to give yourself like a couple of years.
You're 4 years into this, and I'm shortly right behind you.
Yeah, and
we started with nothing.
I know, and I think it's more and more important as everything becomes more automated, more instant. We think like Amazon Prime, it's going to be there, there before we've even clicked the button. But if you put in the hard work, we've seen it all the time with other Instagrammers, with YouTubers in particular, people who've just started filming because of the love of it, and now they're doing really well. But that was just, they were doing it not for followers, not for things, they were just doing it because of the love of it. And if and that's the right way to do it, because if you focus on the money, you're gonna burn out very quickly. So just do it. Just know that you'll get better over time, and you will develop a style, unless you're like me and you, or we just whatever. But you will develop a style, and you will develop an audience who love that style. So, but just keep at it. It's hard work. It's hard work. No, it's hard work.
Amen to all of that, man. Patience.
Yeah, patience.
All right, let's end this with some rapid fire questions. If you were on death row, what would Ian's last slice of pizza be?
It would either I'd just have every type of meat going on top of it.
You're a meat lover guy, huh?
I do like a bit of meat. But one I love is like chicken and sweet red peppers. It's quite simple, on a really thin base, and that is just really, really flavoursome. So one of those two would be lovely.
All right, script, serif, or sans serif?
Probably script.
Yeah, I knew that one. I didn't even need to ask.
Just because it's my default. That's like my comfort blanket of
same styles. Here, man. Same here.
I go back to that when my brain's too full. I can do that, because I train myself in that style. it takes a lot more brain power to do the other styles and do it well.
Well, what's your favorite typeface? And you can throw a caveat in here, and it can be your own typeface that you created.
No, because like it's hard, isn't it? It's like with all your work. It's just like you like, why do people buy my stuff? You know, I know I'm very fortunate for people to buy my typefaces. And just like it's something about my own work I always find hard. Like, I really like, actually there's a font which is just numerals, which is called Pompadour Numerals, which you can find on losttype.com, which is just a beautifully elegant, really chunky set of numbers, display numbers, which really work really well, like either on their own or a couple together. And I love that one. And something like, I really like a good condensed sans serif font like Babas New, B-A-S.
Babas. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think you can get a free version of it. I like that. I got very picky since learning type design. And so the fonts I used to use back in the day are not the same ones I use now. So,
what's something new you learned this week?
I learned that a setting on my camera that's like actually got to revolutionize the autofocus on it. So I was like filming myself, and I was like, I just need to press this button, and it works better.
That counts, man. That's perfect.
Nothing to do with lettering, I'm afraid.
That doesn't matter. This isn't just a lettering podcast, but it seems to be that I have letterers on, but I can't help it. That's just my people. Okay. Last one. Where can people go to find you online?
I'm at Ian Barnard most places, apart from Twitter, which is annoying because it's got an underscore in between my first name and surname. But yeah, at Ian Barnard on Instagram, at Ian Barnard, YouTube for tutorials. You can see my shop at ianbarnard.co. And there's some freebies on there as well if you've got Procreate stuff. But yeah, I seem to be quite a lot of places. I try and post everywhere. So just type my name and you'll find me. Reach out if you've got any questions. I try and reply to everyone, but sometimes if it's me doing something with a vegetable,
it's incredibly difficult. I understand, man.
Yeah, and sometimes it's people just go, "This is cool," which I could just normally give a thumbs up to, but I try, even on DM, I try and reply to everyone if I can, as long as they're not. I get a lot of people asking, "Can you do my logo for me for free?" or "Can you write out my name?"
Yeah.
So I'm sure you must get a few of those. And so if there's a genuine question that someone needs help with, I reply back to.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for taking the time, waking up early to make this happen. I know people are going to find a lot of value in it, especially content creators who struggled, being consistent or growing an audience. Like, you are the perfect fit for that. I really look up to you, and you've been a good friend all these years, man. I can't wait to see what you and me are doing in the next 5 to 10 years together. Yeah,
and you've inspired me, Scotty, especially going back to what I mentioned at the start about we first met actually face to face, Creative South on the bridge party. We had a good chat, and you said, I remember you saying, next year I'm going to be back here, I'm going to be speaking, and true to your word, you were. And I was like, that is someone who is goal driven and who can back up his words with action. So I was still shocked that it happened, because I honestly didn't think it was going to. So I guess, speak things into existence, man. You were so determined, and you had the look in the eye that said, "Yep, we're going to do this." And you put in the hard work over that year, and you brought back as a speaker and nailed it on your,
yeah, man,
nailed it on the stage. So
I appreciate hearing that. That means a lot to me, man. Well, we'll stay in touch. We got plenty of things to talk about here soon, and I got plenty of Procreate questions I'll be asking you. So appreciate you, man. Much love for you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome day. All right, man.
You too, mate.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye. Ian Barnard, ladies and gentlemen.
That is insanely valuable, and he's got the social proof and credit to back it up. Like, just the fact of what he shared about the shock factor and how you can, do something different with the skill sets to totally throw people off and make them want to share your work. Like, that's how you get big time exposure, especially with these art sharing accounts. And literally on these huge art accounts that share people's work that I follow, Ian always seems to pop up. So how to, get that shock factor, how to build an audience, how to go about creating your first product. Like, this was gold. And I'd love to hear your feedback on it. As promised, here is the giveaway as well as the discount code. So Ian has a $50 voucher that he wants to give you for the first person to retweet this episode and tag me as well as him in it, or through your Instagram, through your stories, and tagging me or Ian in it as well. So the first person to do that, I'll screen capture it, I'll send it over to him, and we'll work on getting you that voucher. And then for every other listener out there, you can take advantage of 30% off your first purchase in Ian's store by using the promo code PERSPECTIVE30. And his store is over at ianbarnard.co. And take advantage of this. And when you do ever purchase one of his products, please, whenever you create something, share it out there, tag him, show him how you're using his products, give him a shout out. He totally deserves it for how much time he puts into these tools and assets to make your life so much easier and help you create cool, dope shit. So again, that's Perspective30, and the first person to retweet tagging both of us this episode or share it in their Instagram stories and tagging us both will win. And, might as well just tag my personal account at PRSPCTV_CLLCTV, as well as Perspective Podcast. Take both of those accounts just to make sure I see it first. Good luck. This week's dose of inspiration goes to my homie Andreas Peterson, aka Andy Cloned on Instagram. And Andreas's detail game is sick as hell. And he's not afraid to invest time into stippling, line work, or anything else that gives your mind a second longer to dissect what he's got going on and consume it. He whips up some crazy illustrations mixed with some amazing hand lettering, and I've enjoyed watching his progress over the years. Check him out again over on Instagram at Andy Cloned. You will not be disappointed. And if you're enjoying what you hear and you want to support the growth of this show, I have a few ways you can make that happen. Let's make it 3 to be exact. The first way is by becoming a Patreon backer at patreon.com/perspectivepodcast. With as little as $1, $3, or $5 per episode, or, your weekly cup of coffee, you can help me cover reoccurring costs like hosting, equipment, and, hiring on help to bring you the best show possible, bring on better guests, and, to make it a little bit easier for me to do this outside the day job. So again, you can become a backer over at patreon.com/perspectivepodcast, and I have reward tiers that you can sign up for, and I try to hook you back up with some rewards. The second way to support the show is for you crypto heads out there. In the show notes for each episode, I'll have addresses for Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin donations if you prefer to go that route. Finally, you can leave a ratings and review over on iTunes. Please leave the review part. It not only helps the show get discovered, but it gives me a huge opportunity to give you a nice little thank you plug like this week's rating and review. And this one comes from Brooke Craven. She keeps it short and sweet. Brooke says, Scotty, host of Perspective Podcast, highlights all aspects of creativity in this can't-miss podcast. The host and expert guests offer insightful advice that is helpful to anyone that listens. Thank you so much, Brooke, for taking the time out of your existence to leave that. I sincerely appreciate it. And as I wrap things up, I want to give appreciation to my friend Áine Brennan for making this episode sound so good all the way from Ireland. And a huge thanks goes out to Nick Jenkins of Blookah for all the dope theme music you hear on the show. Check him out at SoundCloud or on Instagram at Blookah. That's BLOOKAH. And as you finish off your week strong, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.